this is the last. I know this isn't going to be chronological necessarily, but this is the last bit of this batch of videos of the lore together and everything. And Arios Sparrowhelm is... I kind of hate saying this, but it's more the helmet that becomes significant more than the person, but the person is still fairly sizable and significant. Predating Morgana and elements with that, there was another Tarrosill human known as Arios. He ended up being a strong servant. I can't remember in the writing whether he does join the Feldspar Order or rejects it, but he becomes a loyal warrior, one of their best, and he ends up travelling to Arrarsyn. They hear rumour, they hear words of all of these difficulties and challenges, and he ends up going there to basically stop some issues that were going on and threats that were growing within the steppes. And he forms his own force and everything, and with different cases and abilities. He travels over there with his own force and everything, and for a while their actions, their riders, this company, they're able to deliver some tremendous good. They stop a lot of threats, but at one point throughout, rumours start reaching back to Destinal that the Sparrowhelm has become basically too almost corrupt and drunk with power, and that he's starting to move to actually attempt to subjugate some of the southern steppes, which tend to be the ones at less risk. And due to this duty, but due to the factor that Tarrosill kind of dilly-dallied about doing anything, the Temple Guard ended up having to send forces. They weren't alone, other volunteers came with them, most notably from Tartak and Samijati of Erijan as well, and they ended up travelling over. But what this force actually ended up discovering is that the real figure of Arios was slain, and this traitor was the one that actually had adorned the helm, the banner and everything, and was leading this horrendous campaign against all of Arrarsyn. And basically he had completely tarnished the memory of the good that the original wearer of the helm was meant to do. And the force pushed in and they fought heavily, and it was a devastating battle for most of the sides, but the traitor, who was now with the Sparrowhelm helmet, and his followers were defeated and they were slain. And not wanting to honour them with graves, they were going to be the pyre, essentially, with the helm atop it, not wanting the memory of the real Sparrowhelm to actually be essentially tarnished. Any memory of this betrayal and everything would just be erased. And that is why later on the Temple Guard are so scared of this whole notion, as are any rumours that the steppe tribes heard of the return of the Sparrowhelm. Because, not so much because they were worried that a former legend or maybe the traitor again had returned, or a new person, but by the factor that the helmet was meant to be destroyed. The betrayal and everything that had gone with it was meant to be just wiped from the history, and then all of a sudden, all of these years later, someone mentions it, and that is what drives an urgency for the Temple Guard and sends them to actually go and intercede with what was going on. And initially, another little bit of trivia was I was going to actually have it that someone else was wearing the Sparrowhelm, and I did have in my head who it was going to be, but I realised that the timeline just doesn't fit for it, so that had to be scrapped. But that is the very sort of brief kind of notion to who the Sparrowhelm was. His story is, out of all the stories covered, his is probably the most contained, even more than Morgana's, but it's still significant because of what happens to the helmet later on and its representation. And what I will do as a final note onto this little segment of the video, which I may just add on to one of the others, to be honest, or throw it up on its own, I will just find his image. There we go. The Sparrowhelm. And I know that's I know that's not a sparrow head, but again, it was limited by what Hero Forge had. So, but I can't remember if he. I would have to look up what I've got for his actual description, because I will fully admit I cannot actually remember whether he goes of his own accord or if there's another force like the foxes pushing him or something. It's one of those things. Now I've thrown in the indigo foxes, they could be behind a whole lot of different elements, which could be unique, and I'm sorry. For the concluding time being, that is the conclusion of that accord. So please do comment, like, and subscribe. Please do check out the links in the description. Part of the show is coming soon, so now is the time to pick up the Liberation of Destinal and Assault on Aphalas in that order. In that order. And yeah, do check out the other lore content as well. I'm trying to get a lot of the lore stuff, as you can see, covered out, because the bottom line of all of these videos is that whilst Tonroof's War, the Idros Years of Sorrow, and the Crisis of Galakaros are all going on, all of these stories have been or not all of them, because the Storm battle completely predates all of this, but a lot of these elements have been going on simultaneously in the other areas of the world. And that's what I'm aiming to do. I'm aiming, because I have this inherent concern, being a fan of Warcraft, Lord of the Rings and all of that, I've got an inherent concern that I could get tunnel vision too much on one group or one area of the lore without remembering any of the rest. So basically what I'm attempting to tackle with the lore, with this new approach, is that the idea of when you're looking or watching something on the lore and you're just thinking, okay, but what's happening with this group? Like, say, okay, so that's going on in Destinal, but what's happening on Archivris? Or what's happening on, I don't know, Tardak or Naros? Like, what's happening elsewhere? So, yeah. It's not that they were all just sitting around and nothing was really happening. And Archivris is kind of drawn into this, but also not as much. But, yes. There we go. Nearly 2 hours of lore. Okay. And yeah, for context, this has all been done batch in stream, but I'm sure anyone watching it will work that out. So, yeah. Welcome to the Kingdom of Aphalas and the world of Fellowmind books.